on July 18th. We have already had a territorial acknowledgement, but I do want to again say that we are within the traditional territories of the Lekwungen people, Songhees and Kasapsum nations, and we are extremely grateful to be able to live, work, play, and hold our meeting within these territories. Are there any conflicts of interest? Okay, seeing none, we have the public agenda in front of us. A motion to adopt, please. Thank you, Paul. Seconder, Sean. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. We have the public minutes of June 13th. A motion to adopt, please.
So moved.
Paul, seconder, Tim. Any errors, omissions, or changes? Being none. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. For members of the public, we have welcomed a new member to the police board today. Holly Courtright has been sworn in as the representative from Esquimalt. And we welcome you, Holly, to the meeting. We also have Michaela Hayes online. Other than that, we have everyone here. We're missing a City of Victoria representative, but they're working on that. In terms of board co-chairs update, we will be reviewing and moving forward on setting up committees now that we have a pretty significant turnover and change on the board. We are almost up to full complement, and pre-COVID, we ended up in a situation where we were down so many bodies that we pulled the board together to do the committee work together because we just didn't have the bench strength. And now that we do, we're going to ask people to express their committee desires. And what that will allow is a deeper dive into the issues at hand, but also recommendations to come forward to the board where we can have even further dialogue. So it's a two-level process that I think will be fruitful in terms of really covering topics. I will look to Mayor Alto. Is there anything that Co-Chair Alto, anything that you wish to add?
Nothing to add at this time.
All right. Any questions on that, board? All right, seeing none. We come down to the committee's update, and unfortunately, we did not have a committee's meeting this month. So I don't believe there is anything, but I will look to the committee chairs for anything that they feel needs to come forward. One item is that we have now, Doug Crowder is now has retired from the board, left the board. Holly has taken over that position. He was our finance chair, and so we will be needing definitely to replace him. And we wish him well and thank him for all of his service. Sean, anything you have as governance? Nothing? Okay, and Charlotte already gave me the nothing. All right, so we move down to board member engagement update. So members of the board, this is your opportunity to speak to the rest of your colleagues around the table of your attendance at various events, your interaction as with regards to being a member of the public. One of the other things that we have done in the past as a board is when we were at full complement is we had members attached to community associations to be a liaison to provide feedback or hear concerns that might come forward. And we may look to doing that in the future, but right now, we are free flowing. And so I'll look to any members of the board if you wish to speak. I know, Mayor Alto, that you attended the reserve, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that actually. I did have a chance to attend the ceremony that graduated a number of PD Reserve constables. A dozen, actually 2 of them were for adjacent services, one in Oak Bay and one in Central Saanich. 10 were for our service in Victoria Pueblo. And I'll just say that I thought it was a remarkable ceremony because it was an incredibly eclectic group of people who really, I think, very well represented the diversity of all those communities, and just remarkably well attended by their families and supporters and allies. And it really spoke very positively about the future of the service, I think, for all 3 of the communities, for the communities that were involved. So yeah, I highly recommend folks when they have the opportunity to attend such things to do so, because they really appreciated having the board up there. And it was really kind of inspirational to see the dedication to which they all sort of addressed their future support for the reserves, and for ultimately, I think all of them hope they will be part of the regular service at some point in the future. So it's a very, very well spent few hours.
Great, and just for new board members, we have a number of those types of events. As Co-Chair Alto mentioned, it really is important to members, and they're very grateful when we do show up. So Colette will always let us know, and if you can attend, some of them are early morning and very quick, some of them are longer. So you know, we encourage attendance to show the interaction that we want to create and be part of this organization. And so Paul, you have.
It's more of an internal engagement, but Friday night I had the honor and privilege to go on an 8-hour ride along with Vic PD, and I have to say, I want, especially to the new board members, I fully recommend it. Certainly, it was an eye opener for me in the sense of being able to talk to staff and police directly, but also to kind of see on straight up on some of the issues that Vic PD is dealing with on a Friday night. And I could say there was really lots going on, a variety of calls, and I was so impressed, and I mean this absolutely sincerely, with the professionalism, dedication, and compassion. And I really want to emphasize that word compassion, dealing with citizens and residents in Victoria in particular. It was very moving for me, and I was proud to be a board member, and I want to thank everybody at VPD for opportunity. So thanks for that.
Thank you. And I know, Michaela, you had gone on a ride along as well. Do you want to speak about your experience?
Yeah, can you guys hear me now?
We can.
I think that Paul said it perfectly. I was so impressed. I couldn't even put into words how impressed I was after my ride along. And I think I wrote a really rambling email to Inspector McCrae that just used the word impressed over and over again. But that was really my experience. And I absolutely think that everybody should go on a ride along as soon as they can and as often as they can. I really appreciated the opportunity, and I learned a lot.
Thank you very much. Sean.
Yeah, thank you very much. Echoing Paul and because comments, ride alongs are fantastic resource, not only for us, but also members of the community can also. It is your department, your police force. So please, if you ever feel like you want to have an insight or an opportunity, by all means connect with the department, because it is a good opportunity to engage and see what's out there in the community. I'll mention really quickly a quick story. It was after our last meeting. I saw him in Lanyard on and went to grab lunch somewhere at a grocery store, not realizing I was still wearing this. So it caused a couple people to stop me and ask me if what I did to the department, and I explained as a board member. But very quickly, it resulted in 2, I would say 15 or 20-minute conversations about what we did, what exactly we do, and how we sort of we have our day-to-day matter, so it's quite interesting. So there's a lot of good questions. So I encourage board members, when you're out in the community and you're having to be able to engage people and ask questions, you find that people are really hungry and want to know more about what we do. And it was very positive feedback. One particular person was a support worker who worked in downtown East Side previously to their prior role. So that's a really good insight into what's happening in this community. And they have a lot of positive things to say about our department, how we're handling things, how we're moving towards being more equitable in terms of mental health response. So I found that was really engaging to see that there are people that are following along and seeing how supports are being added in our community. So again, it was unintended. It was I usually take this off when I'm out, but it was a good conversation. So I shared. That was a nice opportunity just to connect with people.
Great. Charlotte?
Shortly after the last board meeting, I wrote my column for the Times Colonist on the topic that there's that perception that Indigenous people don't support police. So I wrote a column saying that not all Indigenous people don't support police. And I received a lot of comments from the public thanking me for that. And I was even interviewed by a radio station in Vancouver who saw my column and asked me to speak. And I did reach out to Barb and said, I've been asked to do this interview. And Barb said, yes. So that's what I've done.
Great, great. In terms of ride-alongs, Deputy Laidman is, who gets to go on ride-alongs? I know that council members have been offered that opportunity, board members.
Council members and board members for sure, and Jamie just put his hand up, so he wants to go on a ride along, I think, so is that?
Pretty much, been out of debts for so long, they pretty much make me sign a waiver now, so ride-alongs are actually in policy of who is allowed to or not allowed to go on them. They are approved through the OIC of Human Resources. Sometimes that gets translated to the officer in charge of patrol because you're typically scheduling with that person, so they sometimes will just defer that. There was an era many years ago now where it was actually almost anybody could come out on a ride along. We would offer it as a charity auction. Sometimes you don't come on a ride along and things. Liability has completely changed all of that. Pretty much now we've narrowed it down to when we are in the recruiting phase for somebody or maybe the courting phase for somebody we're looking to hire from another police agency. Sometimes we'll have them come out. Some recruit level police officers, but only once they're kind of deeper into our process. So not even right at that early stage there is a bit of the threshold. And then of course, board members and council members, we really encourage. I was so happy that Paul and Michaela have made it out. I know Elizabeth's going out later this week, and Tim and I have been back and forth trying to find a date, and I think it's a very valuable thing. But I do think, unfortunately, just in the era that we're in, we do have to keep it somewhat contained. It does take up a lot of time for the members who are doing the ride along, but it's also there's a liability piece to it as well.
I'll go to the inspector first and then
I'll just add that you can also come for a walkabout as well with our community resource officers or mental health teams. We've taken a few ministers out as well, some executives from BC Housing and some other agencies that I work with. So that's always an option too. You can come and walk with our officers and get kind of what they're dealing with and what they're working for and who they're working with. So it's another option as well.
Michaela was able to do that, and I think Elizabeth was able to do that when Paul was coming out. We just couldn't make it work with the schedule on the same day, but that is a great point.
okay, I have Paul and then Michaela.
Just briefly on the, given that we just had on the same topic, we just had a recent community elections, and there are new councillors on both Esquimalt and Victoria. I would like to extend, if the board formally, an invitation. I think that we should actually do that, a formal invitation to those, especially those new board members, to go on a ride along. I think it would also help, give a better overview of the department, and in particular around those difficult topics about budgeting and I think that would be a good step in the right direction. So whether it needs a formal motion or not, but I think an invitation should go from this board to those new board members. Something that I would recommend to council. Pardon me. Yes.
I don't think it needs a formal motion because we have done it in the past, but let's send a reminder letter that we invite them to set up ride-alongs. And just before I go to Michaela, in speaking with Michaela and others around ride-alongs, I encourage you all to do ride-alongs in both communities, so that there's a sense of understanding the policing of each community as well. Michaela.
That's what I was going to say, what both of you just said, actually. So I was going to bring up that you had mentioned to me the value in coming to Esquimalt. So I will set that up. And I really think that what Paul brought up is extremely important. I think it's a very big missed opportunity to not have council members. And I brought that up right away after that. It's a real, it is a real blind spot to not actively encourage them to come and participate and see a little bit more about that big budget that they're voting on. So I think we should more than just remind them. I like Paul's suggestion of actively inviting them.
Can we add in the letter that after the ride along, we would encourage them to come and share their experiences with us?
Right. And we actively encourage them to, and come and share their experiences.
Being hospitable.
Co-chair.
I can just mention that at least 2 or 3 of the new, all new except me, current city council members in Detroit have gone on ride-alongs. One actually did a full shift, an overnight shift, which was quite a remarkable experience for them. So yes, I have no objections to there being an invitation, but they've certainly received encouragement from me to do so. As far as I know, almost all of them have something in the planning phases.
And I would just add that we are into, in the same way as the board takes a break in August, councils take a break. So I would suggest that we send this letter either the last week in August or first week in September, so that they are sure to get it while they're active. All right. Anything else in terms of sharing community engagement?
I will just add.
Yes, Tim.
That in some of these conversations that we've been having, I feel very, very drawn to being more active in community. And I think my colleagues are nodding and recognizing that. So maybe on the record to formally pledge to be more active in our communities.
Thank you.
You just have to keep wearing the lanyard.
All right, we move down to BC Association of Police Boards Executive Update, and that's Michaela.
Yeah, so that's me. I don't have a lot to update except that we did, the BCAPB recently received a $50,000 grant to do strategic planning. And I wasn't on the executive of the BCAPB when they applied for that and talked about what that was going to be used for, but we have just received it and we're looking to engage a facilitator to start working on that. So that is the main update.
And I'm going to ask either yourself, Michaela, or Charla, for new board members, what is BCAPB, because we're great at acronyms, and then what does it do?
You want me to take this one, Michaela? Okay, BCAPB is the BC Association of Police Boards. So municipal police boards and tribal police are a part of that organization. So our board has a rep, and it's an opportunity for municipal police board members to meet, to advocate for things, share information. I was just finished my 2-year term as president of BCAPB, and ongoing conversations are always chief contracts and different things like that. So it's a great opportunity for people to come together and share their experiences, working with each other, advocating for government. And so currently I'm in the role of past president. So I'll be assisting Patricia Barnes, who's the new president, and Michaela just joined the executive as secretary.
Thanks, Charlotte.
Fantastic. Congratulations. Do we know where it is next year?
Vancouver.
At what time of year?
We are coordinating that. Generally, it's in March. And this year it was in May because of Nelson and the flights in and the flights out. Tricia Barnes is from Vancouver, and at our last executive meeting, I made the suggestion that it be hosted in Vancouver as she's the new incoming president, and Vancouver is more easily accessible. So I think that they'll be in the process of figuring out when that conference might be. And I know at that meeting, Michaela also brought up that other conferences are at the same time. So this one, there's conferences back to back. So trying to plan accordingly. So the conferences, you don't have to leave one city and fly to the next.
And I bring that up because that is one of the conferences that we consider board education. So the sooner people know, then we will be going through our budget process to understand what kind of allocation of funds we might need towards sending people. But it's also our opportunity to put forward resolutions that then get carried to government with regard to changes. We spoke about something earlier, so the opportunity is there. Any questions on the report out that you've heard? All right, thank you both. Chief Constable update, the chief is away, but Deputy Laidman has at this time nothing to add. And because also the chief is away, the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion and Engagement update will be tabled to the next meeting. And so we come to new business, and this is the 2023 Vic PD Community Survey results. Deputy Laidman.
I think this was added or asked to be added, just to highlight, I think the fact that it has been published onto our website in the public, the results are there, the slides are there. And I know Cheryl Major gave the presentation, I think in camera to the board at our last one. So not sure if we're gonna walk through with the presentation or what the board's wishes are.
We did last time. This was just if anybody had any questions or concerns about the results.
Yeah, I think it's questions, it's concerns. Does the board need to add something to our agenda with regard to diving in a little further? So questions at this time for the deputy or concerns around this? Anything you see in this that you are wondering about? Paul?
Just, could you refresh me and my memory of how is this communicated and or shared with the city of Victoria and the township of Swanwell? In the sense of the board and the mayor and council officially, does this actually, do we present this to them? Do they get aware of this? I'm not sure what we do on that. It just seems to me it would make sense that we would communicate this in a formal basis.
Since we've gone yearly, it is my recollection that we have basically gone public with it, sent the information to councils, and at the quarterly updates that councils get, it would be spoken to at a very high level, and if council wants to ask questions or dig in further, the opportunity is there. Prior to that, you used to do this survey every 3 years.
Yeah.
And there was more in-depth presentation because of that. What is any opinions on that? Any sense of the fact that we're getting it yearly, or do you want further, is there a greater awareness that needs to occur? Charlotte?
I know that when we did it 3 years and then we moved to 1 year, and that was from the communications team providing that information, that they thought it would be really valuable to have it every year. And I know that we have a new person leading the communications team, so I think it'd be really interesting to hear from them on what they think for their department, as well as for our knowledge, but with a new person running it, they might have a different thought.
Sean?
Just a direct question. So just to, when these survey results are come to department, how does the department take this information particularly? Is it, does the chief or deputy chief take sections of it and allocate certain areas of like, for example, if in the, one of the survey percentages says, how do we deal with problems? And it says, you know, public's asking 23% respondents say more patrol / be visible. Another one is hire more officers. So something of those two categories, how does that department take that? And do they then relate to the individual folks who were in charge of departments in terms of that feedback? And if it is, and what sort of measurements are done? It's a bit of a high level question, but so the public understands when they see this, when they respond, how does the department then use that information? And how is it then passed down to do those things or to look at those things?
Yeah, and I can speak to the past, because right out of the gate, the chief and the other deputy and I have not sat down to see what our next steps on this particular survey yet. But in the past, we have, from surveys gone past, we have launched, say, a visibility strategy of sorts, or a visibility campaign. You know, we're changing the colors, our reflective vests, or we're adding foot patrols in the summer. We have examined that, and of course, this speaks to survey methodology, is the accountability piece, which flags, you know, what is Vic PD accountable? And that one never really, it's kind of it's a nebulous thing because it hasn't necessarily been defined, but how do you go back and define it now and actually have some trends there? So as you see, when you look at accountability, that question hasn't, the answers haven't really, the trending hasn't really changed on that front. So that's one we've examined in the past. Then you did bring up a third example,
Just like, but according to the survey results of public's, I guess it's saying hired more police officers.
Yes.
For example.
On that one, we're always trying to do that, that's for sure. Yeah. We're rolling out a refreshed recruiting strategy here shortly, so we'll be ready for the presentation in the next short while. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, this is good for the public when they're watching, understanding. So when they see this, they're saying, okay, well, this is what my community said. Now, how is it taken by the department, which you explained, for different divisions, different strategies. So they can see, okay, this is how some of these could be actioned or how the thought process.
So I mean, when you look at the training this year, it hasn't changed a whole lot, but you know, what does the public want us to pay more attention to? In the top 5 are homelessness issues, mental health concerns, traffic, drug possession and use, which the landscape, as we all know, because the DCRIM is in the process of changing, and then also break-in. So there's 3 of those 5 issues that clearly we need to utilize and leverage our strong partnerships in the community to address those. And of course we are as best we can, but there's always room for new partners, and there's always room for new strategies and more community. Well, let's use the trending term community safety and well-being to bring into the fold, because we can't even do our jobs by ourselves. We are members of the community. We're small part of an overall community scope on how we're dealing with social issues. And I think that is just going to become more and more prevalent. It's going back to community policing, what it's all about. Everyone has a place at the table when it comes time to those 3 issues that I mentioned there.
Elizabeth?
I encourage us to stick to the annual reporting because it was really useful, particularly in the cases where you could go back more than the 3 years. It was a couple of 9-year projections. So, you know, because sometimes you get blips up and down, you don't really know what they mean. So I think that was very helpful. And I also noted that the big things like, are you satisfied with the police force? The marks there were good. I mean, you obviously, you could be at 100% or 95%, but I think 80% is good, although it's dropped over the time that it's being tracked. So that's for me would be a question. So what is that? Because if you've got a number of years, it's not just a blip. I'm glad you mentioned the question of accountability, because that was the one that stuck out for me, because it's the only one that's below 50% in terms of people not thinking that Vic PD is accountable, which begs the question about why. And you, I think, answered my question to the extent you said we don't really know what that is measuring. So one thing we could think about is looking at some of these things which are puzzling to us or may you know, we may want to uncover a little bit more about what's behind it, is doing some kind of, I don't know, focus group or something a little more digging into it so that we understand where the public's coming from. And I think, you know, when I matched that back to what I was saying in the other meeting about concerns about whether our board supports everybody, the police, and how the community feels about us, I think we've got a community thing there that we could build on, because when people have interactions with the police, for the most part, if they're, you know, when we had community liaison come to our community association in Burnside Forge, it was super positive. People came away with a really good impression of what was happening, but most people don't have interactions with the police, so we don't know what we think of them. So I think if we could dig into a little bit more about that, I think that would help us, you know, improve what we're doing and figure out where we need to connect with the community more.
That it's troubled us in the past, I suppose, and we've been around long enough that accountability sort of, okay, where are we going with this? Because, you know, we are one of the most legislated bodies in the country when it comes to oversight. You know, the three big ones, as you know, are the IIL, the OPCC, and the police board. But then you've got a myriad of policies on top of that. You've got all sorts of acts and legislation that we follow. So, you know, if we change the question in the survey, that's we're gonna have to flag that as, okay, at this point in time, we actually define accountability as such and such, and maybe that's the move that we need to make if we're doing this annual anyway, and then we just have to wait for the trending to happen. So, you know, that's kind of, I don't know if staff has any, if inspectors or directors have any comment on that, certainly we might go with that, but it's certainly something to ponder, so thank you for that.
I think Elizabeth's suggestion though around doing more focus groups and perhaps even taking that out to the communities would be a wonderful way of engaging further and whoever's initiative it is. One of the things that I really appreciate is that the survey does results for Esquimalt, results for Victoria, and results for both. And these are real insights into communities, into the people who live in those communities. And so I think it's important that we do look at the differences, but also the similarities, because there's a number of similarities. But it would help us in terms of engaging those communities because now we have much more specific information for each one. Anything further on this? In terms of this idea of focus groups, Jason, will I just leave that with you to take back and see how we might all try and figure something out?
Let me take that, because I mean, my mind's already running with part of the board's strategic priorities, and Tim's comment about you know, committee to be out there further. Maybe it's a board focus group. You know, to keep to keep police sort of at an arm's length from discussing the question of accountability. Maybe have one of those oversight bodies explore what that sort of means in the frame. So yeah, let me wrap my head around that a little bit. I think there's some opportunity there for sure.
Okay. Anyone else? Sean?
Just real quick, thank you very much, Jason, for following up on that. And maybe is just to add on, if a focus group or whatever it might be, an opportunity, maybe talk to the folks and see if there's an opportunity maybe for a town hall or something. I know some commissions or some boards have done that across Canada with some degree of success, some not so much. But I'm just throwing it out there, saying that, you know, in the ideas of all that we're just talking about, if that's a way to, you know, engage the public a bit more, just adding on to Tim's idea. I don't know if that's going to be the best opportunity or best way, because we don't come to a certain time of day, a certain event, but just adding more to the idea as well.
For sure, take that into consideration. I gotta balance the priorities of our PA folks, but yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Just as a reminder, bringing us back to when we used to do this every 3 years, and I much prefer, by the way, annually. When we used to do this every 3 years, we did do a focus group or a report back to the community. And I will say, most of the time when we did that, we typically would do it 4 times. The attendance was extremely poor. We would typically, and this was with a lot of promotion, we would typically have more from our management team there than we had from the community. And I don't know if that was part of why we changed it, but just know that that is a barrier at times. But there might be workarounds, but that just, you know, we have been through this in the past.
Given COVID, given change, I think it's worth another opportunity because really, we're in this room and the public are out there. That's not what we need. We need to all be in the same room to have, be having that engagement. So,
I'll take it away.
all right, if there's nothing further on this, we'll leave it with you and have it come back in whatever way, shape or form. The last item on the agenda is the vice chair position. I attended the education, the Watson in-depth module, and a light bulb went off when somebody mentioned the idea of vice chairs on police boards. It, for whatever reason, is not something that has, in fact, in the prior to the framework agreement, prior to the co-chair agreement, within the framework agreement, or as an addendum to it, the mayor of Esquimalt was known as the vice chair, and the mayor of Victoria was known as the chair. There is no definition of vice chair in the police act. So it was kind of like you got mayors as chairs in the act, but what is this thing? So anyways, because we're a very complex board and we have 2 chairs and 2 mayors, there are times when 2 mayors and 2 chairs are potentially in conflict, either perceived or otherwise. And this is why Watson has brought forward the idea and the outline of having the board have a vice chair, such that when the mayor is in conflict, there can be somebody that can carry things through. Now, it adds another layer of complexity to our board, having a vice chair, but I think it would be a valuable thing for us to look at. I had tasked Sean as the chair of governance to look into this. I provided him with the job outline as per Watson, and he also has gone off and looked at what are other boards doing. And so, Sean, if you want to just give an overview of the work you've done to date, and this is something that I think next step will go to the governance committee to really hammer down and bring forward a recommendation for the board. But I want to thank you for the work you've done, and please provide us with some highlights.
Great, thank you very much. And thank you for the task. I agree that it's something we definitely need to explore. So what I've done so far is I've just basically canvassed other police boards, other boards similar, so Vancouver Police Board, Surrey Police Service, for example, who already have vice chair roles. So I've looked at their manuals, I've looked at their policies, I gathered them, most recently just collated them and just handed off to our team, or essentially Colette specifically, so that we can go to the next step. So we go to the next step, as the mayor just said, that we wish to perhaps task the governance committee, we meet and we do a deeper dive in this. We have materials ready, that we can then start to develop a policy or a draft policy or role of what this vice chair will look like. The good news is that it's already out there amongst other departments, commissions. I use the word commission quite a bit, but I know it's what people say across Canada as do other boards. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel per se, but we can definitely tailor it to our specific unique amalgamated board. So yeah, those I think the words we're at. So we'll move quickly, and I know it's a priority for the co-chairs for us to just develop this. So I'm hoping that we can bring something to the board pretty soon, or in the fall, I guess, for us to look at.
Right. Are there any questions around this work in progress? All right, no questions. Thank you. All right, we've come to the end of the public meeting. And, I want to thank the members of the public who have tuned in with us. Board, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Just to let the public know, we do take a break in August. We will be back in September, and we look forward to engaging with you further in